Hello dear friends. In last last video, we have discussed importance of clinical trial in drug discovery, basics of clinical trials, and what are the challenges in the traditional way of clinical trial. And very briefly, we have seen how AI can be used to make this process of clinical trial faster. So in this video, we will go a bit deeper how clinical trials can be affected in a positive manner by using AI. We will also recall few basic concept of machine learning, supervised, unsupervised, and neural network. Though already we have discussed in preliminary videos, uh, there is requirement for a brief recall. So without much ado, let me process for this further. So clinical trial is an area with great potential for optimization, as only 12% of drug development programs are successful. According to a study between 2000 and 2019, only 12% of the drug development have been successful because of successful clinical trial. Rest of the drug development processes have been failed because of poor output or poor clinical trial design in the clinical trial. So inability to demonstrate efficacy or safety, flawed study design, participant dropout, that is the leaving the clinical trial in between by the subjects, I mean healthy volunteers or patients, or improper or unsuccessful recruitment of the subjects lead to this high failure rate. So these are the processes where AI can be successfully implemented. Rather, I would tell you in my few next videos that few startups and established companies are using AI for designing clinical trial, for recruiting patients for clinical trial, and for remotely controlling, monitoring, and managing or supervising clinical trial sites and other sites. So how here comes the role of AI. How AI can help in these problems which are inherent lying in the clinical trial process. So first is natural language processing. So what is NLP? Already we have seen in earlier videos. Let me recall you for recall faster. So the way Google translates one sentence from one language to another, or the way few applications from Google Play Store converts your text to voice to text. So the way humans read, learn, understand, respond languages, sentences in a grammatically correct manner. The same is done by NLP arm of AI. So because of NLP, there is faster data analysis and decision making from structured and unstructured data. I will talk about what is the meaning of structured and unstructured data from medical records, relevant guidelines, real world data, and other sources that could potentially enhance the quality and efficiency of clinical trials. Second is clinical trial design and optimization. Pulling in information from comparable studies, clinical data, and regulatory information to optimize eligibility criteria, cost, length, and retention. So through NLP, through AI, the sponsor or the research team can get ready to use information from earlier success or earlier failure. So here there is no need of humans to read each and every data, but machine learning algorithms, deep learning algorithms will read the data through NLP, and it will give you highly filtered actionable insights. Clinical trial recruitment using natural language processing. So here to analyze doctors' notes and clinical data such as pathology reports, MRI reports, patient history, other medical record to determine the pool of potential subjects. For example, you are doing clinical trial for anti-diabetes drug. So you need the data of those people who are diabetic, and there might be several criteria like type 1, type 2, and there is disease or not. For example, diabetic is suffering from blood pressure or other disorder also. So all this data can be filtered by you through NLP. So NLP will scan hundreds of thousands of medical records, discharge summary, prescription notes, everything, and it will give you ready-made information. So if it is properly scanned, properly annotated, it is called structured data. But when there is improper data, data is not proper, data is incomplete, some informations are missing. For example, they have mentioned so and so patient is suffering from diabetes, But what is the type? What is type of diabetes? Type 1 or type 2? It means data is not properly arranged. I mean, proper prescriptions are not there, for example. Full information is not there. Information is vague. So it is called unstructured data. So natural language processing. This is the most important arm of AI in health sciences, because there is millions of billions of prescription data. Everything is there in healthcare segment. But how to scan, how to read, how to analyze those data? So here comes the role of a system, a software which can read, interpret, cluster, group together relevant information, and which can remove unwanted or dissimilar information from one cluster to another cluster. Here comes the role of NLP. So what NLP can do? NLP means natural language processing. The image and genetic data are machine understandable. Therefore, machine learning ML algorithms can be directly performed after proper pre-processing. So first you have to filter the prescription. Suppose you have 200 prescriptions of diabetes patient. So you will remove those prescriptions which are having unwanted, or which are having very explicit information, or which are without proper information. Then you pre-process them and you give scan prescription to the machine learning algorithm. Now machine learning algorithm will treat those scans of the prescription as images, the way we unlock our smartphone using computer vision technology of AI. Similarly, through computer vision, NLP will read the scan prescription and will feature out, will extract, will select the information from all the prescription, and it will group them together. For example, out of 50 prescription, this 30 are having type 1 diabetes. How it got this idea? Because doctor has written complaining of history of patient name so and so, and he is suffering from type 1 diabetes. So obviously, before giving document to the NLP system, the humans will hide the biological information, for example, name of the patient, phone number of the patient, address of the patient, but it will not hide sex, age, and disease. So in this way, it will feature out, it will extract all the relevant information, and it will group them together. So it will cluster them together. So for example, cluster 1 data will be very similar, but cluster 1 data will be very dissimilar from cluster 2 data. It means intra cluster variation should be almost zero, and there should be more and more difference between inter cluster items, or the sample size, or the input, or the data points in different cluster. So large amount of clinical information are in the form of narrative text, such as physical examination, pathology reports, MRI, CT scan, mammogram, other things are there. So operative notes are there, handwritten notes are there, discharge summaries are there, which are unstructured and incomprehensible for the computer program. In this context, natural language processing targets at extracting valuable information, just I told you, from the narrative text to assess clinical decision making. An NLP approach has two main tasks. First is text processing, followed by classification. First, as I told you, it will feature, it will extract the, it is called feature selection or proper feature extraction. It will extract all the prescription or discharge summary in which there is recommendation for taking insulin, for example. So it will first, it will process the data, it will remove all the prescription having insulin as the medication. On the other hand, it will remove all the prescription which are not having insulin mentioned on the prescription. It means you have got ready to use two clusters of patient discharge summary. In one cluster, all the patient detail is there, in which doctor has mentioned you need to take insulin. In another group, they have mentioned non-insulin therapy, for example, metformin and so on. So this is called classification in an automated manner by natural language processing. Through text processing, the NLP recognizes a series of disease-specific related keywords in the clinical summaries, notes, records based on the historical databases. Later, a subset of the keywords are selected through examining their effects on the classification of the normal and abnormal cases. For example, data, I mean NLP has given you ki out of 150 patients are to have to take metformin. It means they are having diabetes. Through another software, another system, you will scan for the disease mentioned by the doctor on the prescription. So you will correlate whether the keyword is metformin, keyword is diabetic, keyword is insulin, and so on. So if keywords are able to directly classify the patient in this 100 prescription, insulin is mentioned, these are the keywords insulin, so are those highly filtered keywords are able to directly classify if the patients are diabetic or not, or hypertensive, and so on. So you have to find only those keywords, only those markers which are directly proportional to disease, otherwise there is no use of NLP. The authenticated confirmed keywords then enter and enrich the structured data to support clinical decision making. So in this way you can also recruit patients for new diabetes treatment molecule. This is how patients are recruited through AI, through NLP. The NLP system has been developed to support augment clinical decision making on altering treatments, monitoring adverse effects. For example, using natural language processing for reading the X-ray. So there is NLP which will scan the X-ray report, and immediately after scanning through IoT or through other system, it would assist the antibiotic assistant system to alert doctors for the possible requirements of anti-infective therapy. It means there is emergency case, doctor has admitted the patient, and to begin with they started some empirical or relevant antibiotic. Meanwhile, X-ray reports are being examined by NLP or deep learning algorithms, and then immediately after seeing the variation into the X-ray of the patient compared to healthy volunteer, it will alert immediately, it will give alert to the doctor that you need to give this antibiotic to this patient, because the infection in the chest X-ray is indicating he needs or she needs so and so antibiotic. Immediately after second verification, doctor will change the course of antibiotic. So you see directly by scanning X-ray, doctor is getting alert that change the antibiotic or alter the antibiotic, or this is the normal course of antibiotic for this type of variation I have found into the X-ray of the admitted patient based on the comparison between normal X-ray and deceased patient's X-ray. How beautiful it is. So AI technology can be used for following 6 areas of clinical trial. Number 1, clinical trial design. The first step is clinical trial design. So various biopharma companies are adopting a range of approaches to innovate trial design. Increasing amount, acha, already I told you many times why AI is so successful now. Why there is need of machine learning in every business, in every system, in every organization. Because two reasons are there, already we have discussed many times. Number 1, huge amount of data are being gathered, collected, prepared, processed every day, every single second. And number 2, there are state of the art high end softwares, graphics processing units, GPU, to analyze those data in a quicker, much faster manner. This is the reason everyone wants to use AI in the system. So increasing amount of scientific and research data, such as current and past clinical trial. So we learn from earlier failures. Similarly, companies can learn from earlier failure, but they need proper data, they need proper actionable insight. This is done by AI. Current and past clinical trials, patient support programs, and post-market investigation, because sometime even after the launching we have to recall the drug after analyzing post-market surveillance report. So here new companies can learn from earlier failure of other company or their own failure. So this all is done by data gathering and data analysis by AI algorithms. AI enabled skills having supreme potential to collect, organize, and analyze the increasing body of data generated by clinical trials, including failed ones, can extract meaningful pattern of information to help with design. So not only success, even failed clinical trial can give you data ki what was the reason for failure. For example, excessive or much beyond the expectation dropout of the healthy volunteers or the patient. some manipulation or fake data by third party organization, or lack of fund, whatever reason is there, or flawed or improper or wrong type of clinical trial design protocol also can be the reason for failed clinical trial. Second, patient enrichment, recruitment and enrollment. What is the enrichment? To get only those patients which are highly required, which are fully, correlated with the data objective, with the study objective. So for example, we are going for a disease, a treatment for lung cancer. So there are hundreds of reasons. For example, for lung cancer, symptoms might be same, your biopsy data might be same, but different etiological factors might be responsible for lung cancer. So you have to decide what type of factors for lung cancer you are addressing to. So you will choose only those patients which are having same type of genetic alteration is the reason behind the lung cancer. It is called patient enrichment, to choose highly filtered patient for particular disorder. AI-enabled digital revolution can improve patient selection and increase clinical trial success through mining, analysis, and interpretation of multiple data sources, including electronic health records, medical imaging, and omics type data. For example, again I will come to example of diabetes. You are targeting some patients having diabetes. So you have thousands of data of diabetic patient. This is one parameter. Second is, you are targeting type 1 or type 2. If you are targeting type 1, then remove type 2 patient from your general pool of diabetic patient. Number 2. Number 3, you filter the age group. Only I want the diabetic patient of type 1 less than 50 years of age, for example. Then criteria number 4, are they smokers? Yes or no. Filter or include. Again, depends on your clinical trial protocol. Number 5, are they having more than one disorder? If yes, filter. If no, filter. If yes, do they have cardiac issues? Yes or no. Likewise, to get highly filtered data of the patients, and all the patients should be similar. So it is called patient enrichment. Investigator and selection of site. Here also there is role of AI. One of the most significant aspect of a trial is selecting high functioning investigator sites. So there might be data, for example, in particular area in this world, or particular clinical trial site, or particular clinical research organization site, there is high failure rate or high success rate. So AI NLP will give you highly filtered data that in this city or this CRO always gives successful clinical trial output, and their molecules are also successfully doing, the molecules from these center are blockbuster. There is no recalling in last 20-30 years. It means that particular site or CRO are doing good. Site qualities such as administrative procedures, availability of resources, clinicians with in-depth experience and understanding of the disease can affect both study timelines and data quality and integrity. Therefore, site selection is also an important criteria. AI techniques can help biopharma companies in identifying target location, qualified investigators, and priority candidates, as well as collect and organize evidences to satisfy regulators that the trial process complies with GCP requirements. Patient monitoring, medication adherence and retention. Another area where AI is doing beautiful. AI is doing this right now in various parts of the world. Various startups are doing wonderful. I will discuss in next few videos. There are few organizations on their website directly. You choose, you input your data, your age, sex, disease, area, pin code, whatever, and choose the disorder. Then it will give you all the clinical trial studies going in the world as per your input data. Then you can choose the site and you can communicate to the detailed procedure how to enroll and how not to enroll. So directly, without any human intervention, without any human communication, directly you can choose the site and you can enroll as per the procedures given on their website. AI algorithms can help in monitoring and managing patients by mechanizing data collection. So through automatic data collection, there is no need for visiting the clinical trial sites at your home. Very happily you can consume the medicament as per the given protocol, and everything can be recorded by the sponsor, by the organization remotely through cloud server, through wearable devices, and through IoT, that is Internet of Things. And managing patients by mechanizing data collection, digitalizing standard clinical assessment, and sharing data across system. AI algorithms in combination with wearable devices technology, for example Apple Watch, can enable continuous patient monitoring and real-time insights into the safety and effectiveness of treatment. Depending on the agreement between the patient and the organizing committee, different types of movement, where he is going, what he is eating, type of item he is eating, I mean calorie consumed by the patient, all this data can be checked, supervised in a real-time manner without meeting the patient, just through wearable devices or IoT devices. So trials generate enormous operational data, but functional data silos and different systems can impede companies from having a comprehensive view of their clinical trial. Here also AI enabled devices are giving good result. Outsourcing and strategic relationship to obtain necessary AI skills and talent. So here also they have mentioned how AI skills can be utilized for doing clinical trial in a faster and flawless manner. So machine learning, now we have seen 6 types of areas where AI is already being used for making smarter clinical trial. So already we have seen how natural language processing can be used for clinical trial system. So we all know machine learning or deep learning requires huge amount of highly filtered and cleared data to get the output. So in case of clinical trial or in case of health sciences, what is the input for machine learning algorithm? So inputs to machine learning algorithm means patient data, patient's features, patient's characteristics or patient's trait, and sometimes medical outcomes of interest. A patient's feature means baseline data, age, gender, disease history, and so on, and disease specific data, for example diagnostic imaging reports, gene expression, laboratory reports, physical examination, clinical symptoms, etc. Besides the characteristic traits, patients medical outcomes are also collected in clinical research. This include disease indicator, for example what is the blood profile, what is the lipid level, what is sugar level, so they are called biomarker, they are called the disease indicator. So patient survival times and so on. So all these are the input data for training the machine learning model for giving you output. So for example how they denote the data, we have x means input data, y means output data or label or the class, already we have seen. X means independent variable which decides the future or the output, that is y. X is independent and y is dependent, because y value, that is output, that is label, depends on x. So a patient is there, like we have various patients A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Suppose we have ith patient, I for ith patient, and she has lot many trait or the features like uh, age, gender, then their location, history, disease, biomarker, age, history, whatever. So we are choosing only one parameter, for example that is J. So say for example J's trait, that is it is BP. So BP, that is J, BP of I patient, that is Xij. X means input, I means patient, J means patient's one trait. So BP of ith patient is giving output yi. So yi is the output of I patient, whether the patient is suffering from some disorder or not, or some other output which is exclusively related to the related to the I patient based on jth character of the I patient. This is called the correlation or mapping function between input and output. So depending on whether to depending on whether to incorporate the outcomes, machine learning algorithms can be of two types: unsupervised and supervised. In case of unsupervised, we have only input data, we don't have output data. So unsupervised learning is well known for feature extraction, pattern recognition. For example, you have hundreds of scan prescription of the patient and they are not having any label, just information is giving BP is so and so, sugar, I mean blood level is lipid level is so and so, sugar level is so and so. So based on this unlabeled data, unlabeled means only there is mentioning that lipid level is so and so, but there is no further output that lipid level is more than 200, so he is a patient suffering from obesity. Obesity is not mentioned. Similarly, blood sugar level is 250, but they have not mentioned or they have hide on the prescription whether the patient is diabetic or not. So just give the unlabeled data without y value, then your machine learning will give you classification. In the first cluster, in the first group, we have all the data of the persons who are having lipid levels so and so and sugar levels so and so. So now after this ready to use information, in a manual manner you will give the input that if blood level is so and so, he is obese, or sugar level is so and so, he is diabetic patient. So first task has been done by system through unsupervised machine learning, and then later on you supervise it by giving y value, by giving output, by giving label value, class value. This is the way unsupervised system work. In case of supervised learning, there is x value and y value also. Third coming case is semi-supervised information, semi-supervised learning, and it has been proposed as a hybrid between unsupervised learning and supervised learning, which is appropriate for scenarios where the outcome is missing for certain subjects. Clustering and principal component analysis are two main unsupervised learning methods. Already we have discussed in detail when we discuss about machine learning. Principal component analysis is mainly for dimension lessening or dimension reduction, particularly when the trait is recorded in a large number of dimensions. For example, the number of genes in a genome-wide association study. So PCA and clustering, these are two techniques or algorithms used for unsupervised machine learning. On the other hand, supervised learning consider the subject's outcome together with their traits. You have the output, that is y, and you have x also. So when you have input value, patient's characteristics, and output or the disease or the condition associated with those input, it is called supervised learning. So support vector machine is a type of algorithm which is used for machine learning. Similarly, the third one is neural network. Already we have seen three types of neural network: CNN, that is convolutional neural network, which is basically designed for image processing. How we unlock our feature phone, our smartphone, just by showing our face to the camera. How self-driving cars identify the objects on the road, signboards, animal, humans, male, female, aged, young, children, forever, I mean other things. So this is the use of CNN. On the other hand, we have the recurrent neural network, RNN, for handling, for analyzing, for processing sequential data. For example, music, audio, video streams, or the languages, or the series of amino acids which are making particular proteins. So when data are sequential, and the next sentence, or the next word, or the next letter, or the next phrase, or the next musical tone depend on the earlier information, it is called sequential data. Here comes the role of RNN. So neural network is an advanced type of machine learning, which is the example of deep learning, where there is no direct correlation, or there are more than two factors, there are more than two inputs or two variables which are giving the output. So when there is no collinearity, there is non-linear data, it is called, here comes the role of neural network. So already we have seen how neural network works. So we are skipping here. We already have seen what is bias, what is weights, what is backpropagation, how neural network are trained. So these are the applications of artificial neural network in case of in case of what we call it clinical trial. So for example, CNN, that is already I told you, convolutional neural network, which is the best available model so far in the world for analyzing picture data. See, picture means once you have the MRI scan, if you have the prescription of the patient, if you have the MRI scan, if you have the X-ray, if you have CT scan, if you have sonography, if you have mammogram, all these are images for the neural network. So in the image, they will identify the variations or the anomalies in the patient compared to the features shown by a healthy volunteer's images. So CNN is the main neural network which is used for medical imaging research. CNN has been efficaciously implemented in the medical imaging arena to assist disease diagnosis. For example, in diagnosis of congenital cataract through learning the ocular images, identifying skin cancer from clinical images, detecting referable diabetic retinopathy merely through the retinal fundus photograph. You have to train the deep learning models by exposing it to hundreds of billions of images of healthy volunteer and patients images means their pathological I mean medical images. Then it will give you highly recommendable trustworthy data of the patients status, whether are they positively what we call it uh, pseudo positive or pseudo negative. That is the way we do this use of CNN. So one point worthy of mentioning here is that output of CNN is competitive against qualified experts when it comes to correctly classifying both normal and disease cases. Means CNN and the output of artificial neural network driven studies of medical images are giving the output which is highly competitive. Means even they are surpassing medical experts, even radiologists, to give the output in a flawless manner. With this we conclude the reasons and type of applications or the areas where AI is being implemented. In next few videos in the same series we will talk about different organizations and about their few technologies, their proprietary softwares which they are using for implementing AI, machine learning, deep learning, NLP for making clinical trial smarter, faster and economic for the patient's benefit. Thank you very much.